Biden is blocked from the U.S. Capitol delivering a major speech warning about threats against the nation's democracy. This coming just days after the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. Our Washington, D.C. Bureau reporter Kevin Fry joins me now with the very latest. Good evening, Kevin.
Yeah, good evening, Errol. A message from the president in the building just behind me, Union Station here just near Capitol Hill, about democracy's future, warning that it is in peril, especially if election deniers are elected come next Tuesday. Also on the ballot next Tuesday, 2 congressional candidates in New York's 18th district. It was a surprise victory that gave Democrats nationwide a jolt of hope. Pat Ryan winning a special election over the summer to replace Antonio Delgado in Congress and sparking questions. Could the much talked about red wave in this November's midterms be more of a trickle? That race came 2 months after the Supreme Court ended the constitutional right to an abortion, a momentous decision that Ryan made a focus of his campaign.
Our victory in the special election in August here sent a national message that when reproductive rights, when fundamental American freedoms are at risk, Americans stand up.
Now, having barely settled into his Capitol Hill office, the former Ulster County executive and Army vet is back on the campaign trail, seeking a full term and hoping lightning will strike twice in the Hudson Valley.
Not only do we have to marshal that same energy and effort, but we actually have to amp it up even more.
After redistricting, Ryan is now running in New York's 18th district, which centers around Poughkeepsie and includes parts of Ulster, Orange, and Dutchess counties. In 2020, Joe Biden won the district by roughly 8 percentage points. This time, Ryan is facing off against Colin Schmidt, a Republican state assemblyman and member of the Army National Guard. Like before, Ryan is making abortion access a pillar of his campaign.
Every American wants the same thing: health, safety, and freedom. But Colin Schmidt is a threat to all three.
Schmidt is a critic of abortion rights who labels the laws in New York extreme. But asked how he'd vote on a 15-week nationwide restriction proposed by some Republicans on Capitol Hill, he was dismissive.
That's not going to be voted on, and I truly believe the Supreme Court decision sent it back to the states, and any further action should be totally handled in Albany and the state capitol.
But will an abortion message still pack the same punch this go around, especially with the court decision now further in the rearview mirror? Some voters we found are certainly still fired up. Take Emily from Dutchess County, who works in a local bookshop.
The biggest thing that I'm thinking about when heading to the polls next month is the invasion of privacy that the Supreme Court has been imposing on the country.
Schmidt, meanwhile, is hoping his tough-on-crime message will give him the edge. And with inflation still running high, he is hitting Democrats on the economy.
We're going to stop the wasteful spending that is the main driver of inflation, get the economy back in control.
Schmidt recently earned the backing of a conservative Latino group, a demographic where he hopes to make inroads, arguing he shares their values. Their leader calling Schmidt dynamic and saying it's time for change in Washington.
That is not good business when everything's on one party's controlling everything. There's no checks and balances.
One area where the two candidates agree, the Hudson Valley will be pivotal in this month's election, a point underscored by the outside groups pouring money into the race and a recent visit to the district by President Joe Biden. That visit, of course, prompted by those major investments that IBM is planning to do in the Poughkeepsie region. You actually saw Pat Ryan as one of the prominent speakers at that address. Now, speaking of the president and his remarks this evening, parts of what he has said thus far at this speech here in Union Station includes that you can't take democracy for granted any longer, encouraging people to think about that when they're heading to the polls. And this will determine in this election whether democracy will long endure. Now, speaking of election denialism, the questions about the legitimacy of past elections, I did ask the Republican in this contest in New York 18, Colin Schmidt, whether the 2020 election was stolen. He told me no. I also asked if he would have voted, had he been on Capitol Hill, a member of Congress, to reject any of the electors on January 6th. He told me that's a hypothetical that he's not considered. Errol?